mistake that I see a lot of young dentists make is they get so caught up in, you don't have to win these awards. You don't have to have social media pages. You don't have to, create TikToks and get tens of thousands of views or likes or whatever.
People get into dentistry for the wrong reasons, right? What do you think the effects of that are, like kind of down the line, whether it be during dental school or kind of people who've gone into the profession and think, actually, this is not for me, too late?
They see implant specialists driving around in Ferraris and Porsches and whatever, and they think that's what happens. It doesn't. You should only be in competition with who you were yesterday. You should not be in competition with anyone else because it's an unfair fight and you're going to get beaten. How do you get this level of precision? How do you get this level of detail? And how did you get this good? Some people don't want to move with the times. They don't want to move with technology. They feel like, I know everything. And I was like, well, fortunately, you don't. My advice is go to dental school, graduate from dental school, and then you start learning. What the heck is a rich dentist? If you know one, let me know, man, because maybe I'm not making enough. I don't know, man. Maybe I should have been dripped out in Louis Vuitton or something. I've just got like my Uniqlo stuff on, but it's comfortable. When people see me with my Lambo and they know that I'm just a regular associate who does 3 days a week in this practice, they have this perceived image of me. And the reality is that's not him.
This episode is about to completely shatter your perspective on what it means to succeed as a young dentist and what it actually takes to make it. Now, Sorabh is an extremely accomplished dentist. He's won multiple awards and owns practices in London. He mentors young clinicians who look up to him, and rightly so. He knows exactly what it takes, both clinically and non-clinically, to be a good dental professional. But to get to this point, he's had to brave the dark side of dentistry, learning many painful lessons and truths the hard way, lessons he's here to share with us now. Nothing is off the table. You're getting the unfiltered and brutal truths on how to survive and grow as a clinician. Hello and welcome to the Young Dentist Podcast, where we ask industry pioneers at the forefront of changing dentistry the questions that you, the young dental professionals, want answering. I'm Afif.
And I'm Fahim, and today we've got our guest, Dr. Sorabh Patel. How are you, man?
I'm very good. I've never been called a pioneer, but sounds quite nice, man. You guys are too kind.
Yeah, I thought we'd big you up a little bit before we get into the juicy stuff. But I mean, the way I want to start is kind of, the first time I heard you speak was at Joe's event on June 8th, right? And one thing that really kind of stood out to me is you said it how it is, right? I remember you had one slide about the awards, right? Dental awards and the importance of getting them. And then you kind of looked at it for a second. You thought, actually, none of these matter, right? And I kind of want to get your opinion on that approach and whether you think that's what dental students need or why you adopt that approach.
I think the thing is, I think there's a lot of false narrative, right? People get caught up in, the sad reality is we are in an industry, right? We're not a profession anymore. We used to be. And there's a difference between being a professional and now being part of an industry. There's pros and cons with both, don't get me wrong. But I think the mistake that I see a lot of young dentists make is they get so caught up in trying to achieve and attain these titles. And I'm like, that's cool, but why? Right? So like, why are you chasing after this award? Or why are you chasing after this thing? And genuinely, if there's a reason behind it, then great. Like, I'm all aboard. Like, the reason I entered some of these awards and the reason I've been fortunate enough to win them, and it's been great to be recognized, it's one, to inspire my associates in my clinics, to sort of show them that, look, the quality of the work we do here in a mixed NHS practice in Southeast London, around the corner from Lewisham, we are doing high quality work that puts us up against some of the best private practices in, central London and, the West End and wherever, right? All across the country. So to be able to be recognized for the work that we can do and win awards, that's fantastic, right? But what I often find is young dentists come in and say, hey, I really want to win this award. And I'm like, cool, that's great that you want to push yourself. Why do you want to win it?
Yeah.
Right? What's your reason? Because sometimes if it's just like, oh, it's clout, then what's the point? Right? If it's because you are a genuine person and you're investing back into the profession and you're actively doing things to help the profession grow and develop and inject some positivity, fantastic. Maybe you should be recognized for what you're doing, and maybe that will help you to, take your stuff to the next level, or to help you achieve what it is you're trying to achieve, right? But I think this question gets deeper, right? Because it's like, what do you attribute as a sign of success, right? And people think, oh, if I've won multiple awards, or if I've got multiple practices, or if I'm a principal, these are all signs of success. yes and no, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work 6 days a week. Sometimes I barely see my parents. Sometimes I'm hardly ever around to spend time with my wife, who I absolutely love and adore, and we got married in May. But the reason I do all of this is because I know that I love this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved this profession, and I absolutely love dentistry, and I love the new challenges that come away from it. But the reason I'm willing to sacrifice that now is because I know the kind of life I want to live in the next 3 to 4 years, right? So, ultimately what drives you will change. When I was younger and I graduated, I thought all I cared about was being as good as I can be clinically. And then if I win things along the way, that's great. So I say this to younger dentists as well. It's, if you've got a goal you want to achieve, that's great, go for it. But make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. As soon as you're not, people see through it. And there are multiple people out there who win these accolades and titles, but there's no substance behind them. And like after a while, once you get to meet these people and you sort of meet them in person, you see who they are behind the lens. You're like, you're the wrong person I was looking up to, right? There's a lot of false idols in dentistry. And, I realized that very early on because I shadowed a lot of these people. Some of them were genuine. Some of them will happily help you. And I've met some people in our industry that genuinely have no ego, that really want to help people out. And those are people that I have the utmost respect for. But then there are others that you come across and you're like, oh, you're not what you portray yourself to be on socials. And I get that, right? Social media is it's a highlight reel of everyone's best moments. But when you meet some of these people and you realize what they do and you're like, you're no different from me. Right? I don't understand why you've won these things or, where you've gone for it. And then you realize that, oh, you did it just for the clout, which is fine, or for marketing or whatever, right? But I know hands down there's 100 other dentists that are going to be better than you clinically. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. It's just some people get lucky with how they position themselves in the industry or how they market themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. You play the game, right? But that's a sad reality of it. But I don't want young dentists getting caught up in that. So I see a lot of young dentists saying, oh, if I haven't won this award, I'm not going to get hired. Or if I don't win this award, then I'm not going to get into private practice or get into this specialty diploma that I want to do or whatever. Like they think that if I can't do X, it means I'm not a good dentist. And that's what I want to break. You don't have to win these awards. You don't have to have social media pages. You don't have to, create TikToks and get tens of thousands of views or likes or whatever. Just be a good dentist with the patient in front of you, because that's the only person that really matters. The person who's in your chair.
100%, and I think you touched on a lot of points there that we're going to kind of do.
We can dissect into it, man.
I think the first thing, I think two of the topics kind of linked together is motivation for dentistry, how that's fueled and kind of altered by social media and what people push on social media. And they call it a social media image for a reason, right? It's not you, right? People push like a positive image of themselves. And I think that also leads into kind of the burnout and the imposter syndrome aspect of it as well. So what do you kind of think of people who, because you mentioned this, like people get into dentistry for the wrong reasons, right? What do you think the effects of that are, like kind of down the line, whether it be during dental school or kind of people who've gone into the profession and think, actually, this is not for me, too late?
That's a great question. I'm very fortunate because this is what I wanted to do since I was 16. I cannot imagine myself doing anything else. And even if like I had to restart my life 100 times over, I'm always going to pick this. That's how much I genuinely love dentistry as a profession and what I do. Like it doesn't feel like work. Unfortunately, there are dentists who don't, because they have this romanticized image of what they think it is. And then when they get out into the real world, they're like, shit, this ain't it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of compounding factors that influence people dropping off. I have a very good friend of mine who we were in university together. This guy was a Boy Scout, like teacher's pet, in the nicest way possible. Like he was proper on it, loved it. We all thought he was going to be incredible as a dentist because he genuinely knew his stuff. But even better than that, he was actually really good with patients. Like he could communicate and he could talk. Didn't have the best FD experience, didn't have the best DFT experience, didn't have a lot of support around him. And he was kind of isolated away. And I got back in touch with him like a couple of months ago, and he was like thinking of going to New Zealand. I'm thinking of going to Australia. Him and his now wife, they've sort of applied for visas and stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. What are you going to do out there? He's like, I'm going to retrain. I was like, oh, cool. So I just thought, oh, you're going to retrain as a dentist? He was like, no, I'm going into software engineering. And I was like, why? And he was like, I just really fell in love with coding. And I think COVID was a big factor to that because he couldn't work. And he realized that I actually don't like dentistry. That's what he realized. And he was like, I don't want to spend the rest of my, 20, 30, 40 years going into a profession that I don't really enjoy. So
now, before we continue, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Colgate, for making this podcast possible. Colgate is on a mission to support the next generation of dental professionals as they transition from dental school to practice. And they aim to do this through the Colgate Student app. Now, the Colgate Student app is a completely free to use one-stop shop for all dental student education. It contains bite-sized educational content and clips to teach you the skills that you might not have learned in dental school, but that you'll need in real-life practice. The app contains 4 main sections: clinical practice, practice management, having fun, and doing good. It's super easy to use and has something for everyone, no matter which stage in your journey you're at. Now, students and young dentists ask me all the time, Fahim, how do you know what events are happening next? Well, within the student app, there's a specific events section containing exclusive student events, both in person and online, across the country, so you can network your way into those amazing opportunities. All of the content in the app is created by credible sources from across the globe, including the UK's very own University of Manchester, ensuring you have access to world-class support throughout your journey as a young dental professional. Click the link in the description to download the Colgate Student app today. And now, back to the episode.
The good thing with dentistry is there's loads of different avenues you can go into, right? There's a lot of dentists who realize like a couple of years in, they're like, actually, the clinical side of dentistry might not be for me, but you can always go into the business side of things. You can always go into the management side of things. You could always go into teaching. So there's loads of different avenues there. But this guy was like, dentistry as a whole, I'm done. I want to say that's a one-off.
Yeah.
There's quite a few people that happens to. I don't know what the statistics are. I wish I could tell you, but it happens more frequently than you think. So I think knowing what your genuine reason for doing all of this was will really help motivate you. So knowing what your why, why do you do what you do? Why do you want to be a dentist? Why do you want to improve yourself clinically or go into the speciality or all these things? And from my experience speaking to younger dentists, it's mainly, I've seen so-and-so do it, or that looks cool and I want to do it. I was like, so you haven't actually learned the reality of it. Like I have friends of mine who say, hey, I really want to go into specialty training. I was like, cool, which one do you want to do? And they're like, I want to do this one or that one or this one. And I was like, great. Have you looked into the pathway? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, cool. And are you going to do it? And he was like, yeah, it's like 80 grand. I was like, you didn't realize that it was going to be expensive, or you didn't realize how competitive it was going to be? It was like, yeah, I didn't realize that until I got in. And then I realized that, I can't work 3 days a week. I've got to commit full time to university. I was like, there's a lot of naivety. And I think that comes from because people just genuinely don't know what they don't know. Like they see implant specialists driving around in Ferraris and Porsches and whatever. And they think that's what happens. It doesn't, because they don't see the hard work those people do. And, I've got a friend of mine who actually owns a Ferrari and another friend of mine who's just bought a Lamborghini. And these are dentists. They're associates. They're not principals. They're associates. He's just literally bought a Lamborghini. Another one who's bought a Ferrari last month. And I'm just thinking, this is insane. However, I know that these guys have been working 6 days a week flat out. They've not been on any holidays in the last 3-4 years. They literally live and breathe dentistry because that's what genuinely makes them very passionate, and they're empowered by it. And now that they've got what they've wanted, I'm really proud of them. They've worked incredibly hard. He doesn't drive his Lamborghini out anywhere in London because he's got so many people he knows. He's never taken it into work. No one at work knows he has it. The reason for it, and I was speaking to him the other day, and he said, when people see me with my Lambo and they know that I'm just a regular associate who does 3 days a week in this practice, they have this perceived image of me. And the reality is that's not him, right? He's a really good dentist to the point where like my own family members have seen him because I trust him that much. So there is a lot of people perceive people in the wrong way, right? There's a lot of negative connotations. Like, those people that are like always doing something.
Yeah.
Hey, hustle culture?
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with hustle culture, but there is a toxic side of that, right? Like hustle culture is inbuilt into me because I've seen my parents do it.
Yeah.
And that's where it stems from for me. So earlier in this pod, when I was saying I'm working 6 days a week, all this crazy stuff, right? The way you tackle that is being self-reflective. And that's one of the things that I think has been the key to my successes. I know I'm spending way too much time at work. I know that I'm spreading myself thin, and I know that there's so many things stressing me and pulling me in so many different directions. But I know where my limits are now, whereas before I didn't.
Yeah.
Now I know when to ask for help,
Uh-huh.
where to go for help, and I also know how to be reflective enough to know that, okay, this is a short phase because there's X, Y, and Z that haven't lined up.
Yeah.
But I know in the next 3 to 4 weeks, literally in the next 3 to 4 weeks, once October kicks in, I can actually drop down to 4 days a week. I have 1 day off in the week. I'll have my weekends back. And I've got all these things that I've planned with like my friends and family and my wife that I'm really looking forward to again. So yeah, 6 days a week for another 3 weeks and then I'm done.
I see. So Sorabh, you mentioned how it's very hard to cut through the BS, as it were, on social media. How would a younger dentist who sees these people online, how would you actually go about doing that? Does it meet people directly? Is it networking? How can you cut through that?
You'll never tell through socials, right? Through social media, because you see what people put up, right? You see what they want you to see. The other thing that young dentists forget is 90% of the stuff you're seeing, it's not meant for you. It's meant to attract patients. It's meant to attract the general public to see this dentist as, one of the leaders in the world or doing X, Y, and Z or whatever it is. It's to bring patients in, right? But then you get this perceived sort of notion that, if I'm not doing all these things, if I'm not being published, if I'm not being, presented in this journal or that journal or speaking at this event or that event, I must not be a good dentist, right? So that's what you need to break through. Going through the BS of it all, like it all comes down to networking. And I think a lot of people, there's a comparison. They see themselves on social media and they say, I'm not as good as this person, or I'm not doing what X is doing, and all this other nonsense. But the reality is, and the sooner you realize this, the sooner you will actually grow as a clinician and as a person. You should only be in competition with who you were yesterday. You should not be in competition with anyone else because it's an unfair fight and you're going to get beaten 9 times out of 10. Right? There's no point me comparing myself to any other clinician out there. And there are some incredible clinicians out there. They're really good friends of mine. There's no point me comparing myself to them because I'm like, well, 1, they've got 10 years more experience. 2, they've had a very different journey to what I've had. They've had different struggles. They've had different circumstances. So unless it's exactly the same, which it never is, like your journey is going to be very different from mine, right? Even if I had like a twin and we went to the same universities, like we'd still have very different experiences. So you can't compare apples and oranges.
Yeah.
You should just compare yourself to who you were yesterday and aim to get better each day.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of the things that you've touched there have one underlying theme, and it's kind of mental health, right? Now, this is a topic that I know you feel quite strongly about, and it's one that we have to kind of bring light to for the wider kind of audience listening. So I kind of want to take you back in time, right? Back to your dental school days.
Great.
Yeah, I know it's
Which year are we talking? There were good years and bad years.
I mean, kind of walk me through kind of your experience in terms of everything that you've just mentioned, like what affected you and kind of how you've come to the mindset that you have now.
Great. I was not your typical student. I was a postgrad, so I graduated from dental materials and then went on to do dentistry at King's. First year was a doss-up. You just party, you drink, freshers, that's all it is, right? You just get a feel for the university. The one issue I had, and this was probably my biggest chip on my shoulder and probably one of my biggest flaws at the time, and I didn't realize this until you do a lot of self-reflection, a lot of therapy, and you really sort of truly understand who you are as a person. I saw myself as someone who needed 3 years to catch up because I should have been in dental school 3 years previous, but I wasn't because I messed up my A-levels, right? So I ended up going through clearing, did a 3-year degree in dental materials, which I'm incredibly grateful for now because it's given me so much more in-depth knowledge of what I do now. But I constantly thought, I should be 3 years above where I am now. And I think that was a huge sort of flaw because yes, it drove me and it pushed me, but it led me to do things that not your typical student would do. So I can say this now because I'm graduated, so it doesn't matter. There were certain lectures that I just did not attend in the first year because there were just things I already knew, right? There were dental material lectures and all these other lectures. I was like, this is fine. I'll pass the exam. I passed the exams, obviously. But I didn't just sit around and do nothing or just go out clubbing or drinking or whatever. In my second year, that's when I started networking. So that's when I started reaching out to dentists that I would see on social media. Facebook was coming around, Instagram was blowing up at the time. And I'd just say, hey, this case looks incredible. Could I ask you some questions on it? And some people were really grateful for it. They were like, yeah, they'll ask me questions and I'd be learning what I can. And then I'll just be cheeky and I'll be like, hey, can I come shadow you for the day? Some said yes, some said no. But the ones that said yes were incredible. So the best story I have was, I went to see Payman Sabani. He posted this incredible veneer case. And at the time, we were just learning about veneers. And this was before turkey teeth and all this stuff. And I was like, this is insane. Like, how do you get this level of precision? How do you get this level of precision? How do you get this level of detail? And how did you get this good? Because his case looked insane. And everyone's commenting all these things. And I was just like, there's no way this guy's going to reply back to me. So I replied back to one of his stories. And I was like, this case looks incredible. I'd love to know how you manage the occlusion long term. Because he did like a full 16 unit veneer case. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I'm wondering, did you conform? Did you change things? And I'm a second year who's just learning this stuff. So I was really curious. He messaged me back and I said, look, if you get a case like this, I'd love to come shadow. He messages me a couple of weeks later. Never thought I'd get a reply back from him. He's like, hey, I've got this case on this day. Can you make it? I was like, cool, I'm going to be there. Irrespective of what I had. Second year, there wasn't many things I needed to sign in for. So I went. I spent the day shadowing this guy. And he did the most insane veneer preps I've ever seen. His technician came in. They were like planning this case and seeing how they work together. And I was like, yo, this is insane. And I loved it. And then from that, I shadowed loads of other dentists. And I met people in real life. And Payman is one of those rare people who is who he says he is. He's a genuinely lovely person, genuinely nice guy. And he's always doing what he can to help others. And I now sit on the same table as him as a partner of Dental Beauty. And when I realized that, I was like, imposter syndrome kicks in, man. Like, I'm at this table with all the people I used to shadow in my third year, and I'm a partner with this group. And I'm looking at all these incredible clinicians. I'm like, I don't think I should be here. And then I looked back and I spoke to him after. He was like, listen, you're doing things I never would have thought of doing in my second and third year. You're doing the right thing. Don't worry. Just go at your own pace. But dental school for me was different because I realized I don't have anyone in my life who's a dentist. No parents in dentistry, no family members in dentistry. So I had to figure this shit out on my own. I didn't know where to go. So I thought, let me just reach out to people and see what happens. And I did. And thankfully I learned a lot about real world dentistry. And the more I learned about how dentistry was in the real world, the more I questioned everything at university. A lot of my tutors probably got pissed off, but some of them were probably like, you know what, you're onto something, but unfortunately, due to the politics of university and shit, we have to teach you this curriculum. I was like, look, I get it. I'll play along and we'll see what we can do, right? I passed all my tests. I got my BDS, so yeah I'm good.
Congratulations.
The dental school, you realize there's a lot of one-upmanship. That's when you realize everyone's trying to get one up on each other. Everyone's trying to climb on top of you to get higher up. And then I'm just like, there's no need for this. There's enough to go around, right? Like, we can all share the same table, right? And I want you to be successful, even if it means you get there before me. Like, it doesn't make a difference. There's enough success for everyone.
What do you think caused that?
Fuck knows, man. I think that's when you start going into psychology of how these people were raised or whatever, or I don't know, man. Some of it is nepotism. I think they feel as if I'm only here because mummy and daddy got me here, and they're trying to carve their own thing out. Which I respect, because they want people to see that I'm my own person. I'm not here just because my dad's a dentist or my mum's a dentist. I'm here because this is what I want to do. I haven't been forced into it. Then you get the flip side of that, where you get people who are like, I'm only here because mummy and daddy got me here. And they realize that. They acknowledge their privilege, and there's nothing wrong with that. That happens, right? But then you get these people who think, as I was saying in the beginning, if I'm not doing this, I'm not going to get hired. If I don't have social media, I'm not going to get hired. If I don't have, perfect scores or graduate with an honors, or if I don't get published in the BDJ, that's not going to let me get a job. Or I don't know where this fear comes from, because they think I'm not going to get hired, I'm not going to get a job, I'm going to get sued or whatever. And I think maybe it comes down to some of the influences they've had in dental school. It may have been some of the tutors, it may have been, lecturers or whatever, because a lot of these lecturers, some of them are quite outdated in the nicest way possible. These are people that don't practice as much as they should. I have one lecturer, I remember this vividly. He was absolutely opposed to anything digital dentistry. He thought scanners were stupid. He said they're never going to be as accurate. Impression's always going to be great. And he'd make up all these nuanced bullshit arguments. And I'm just like, yeah, I think you're wrong, mate. And now I use scanners for everything, right? And I think there's an ego attached to that, right?
Yeah.
Some people don't want to move with the times. They don't want to move with technology. They feel like I know everything. And I was like, well, fortunately, you don't. Times have changed. Everyone's using scanners now, right? Everyone's using photography. Everyone's doing adhesive dentistry because they understand bond strength. They understand materials. They understand the biomimetics of it all. Whereas back then, they thought onlays won't work. They'll just fall off. I was like, what are you talking about, mate? Like, I've seen like things that are bonding, like just no prep onlays just being bonded on, and they're staying there for like 10, 15 years. Not my own, because I haven't been around for 10 to 15 years in the profession, but colleagues of mine and research papers and people that I look up to. So yeah, there's a lot of influencing factors as to why people get like that.
And Sorabh, you mentioned burnout there as well, how that's a big problem dentists have to face. And also self-reflection as well. Was that self-reflection as a result of the burnout? Or?
I think it was, man. So burnout for me happened very early on. So I was quite lucky. I think the earlier it happens to you, the more you realize that, shit, I need to sort this out, right? I need to, this is why I'm cutting my days down to 4 days a week from next month. I can't keep going at 6 days a week. I'm going to burn out. And when I burn out, I'm not going to be any use to anyone around me, whether that's my team, my patients, my family, my loved ones, my friends, and all those things go to shit. And then you're like, fuck, I need to fix myself.
Yeah.
So realizing this burnout very early on in my career allowed me to put the safeguards I need in place for myself, whether that be therapy or having time to myself or mindfulness or meditation or, a bunch of different things that I've implemented into my own personal life that work for me. Might not work for everyone, but this is what works for me and this is what I'm sticking to. And these things have been fundamental for me to sort of understand how to manage it, right? Because as you said before, there's hustle culture. You've got toxic hustle culture, right? But that's not a bad thing. I think if you overdo it, if you stretch yourself too thin, you're going to break, right? You've got to build in a sense of flexibility to your workload. You've got to have resilience. You've got to have flexibility. And you've got to be able to adapt. And if you can't see that, you're going to break. And that's what burnout is. You're literally burning yourself too thin. Or people around you are taking too much of your time, taking too much of your energy, and your environment might not be conducive to what you want to do. And then you've got to really sit down and think, I need to change my environment. And that's either changing practice, changing jobs, changing a surgery, whatever it might be, right? If you can't fix what you can't fix, then you've got to figure out how to make it work for you, right?
I see. And one thing you mentioned in your response to Sorabh was how you were lucky that you got burnt out early.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an inevitability of sorts in the dental space?
I think it was inevitable for me at the time because of all the extra things I was doing on the side. And I thought I could take it all, right? I that was my own ego at the time, my own hubris. I thought I could literally do anything and everything. And boy, did I get humbled, right? And I'm glad I did, because then I realized I can't do everything. I shouldn't be able to do everything. I can only do what I can do. And then the rest, I'll have to figure out to someone cleverer than me, smarter than me, or more connected than me, or whatever it might be. I can only control myself. So during that time, I think there was a lot of introspection, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of sort of, I really got into Stoicism at the time as well.
Oh, really?
So Stoicism, I'm a massive nerd when it comes to like philosophy and ancient philosophy and all the Greek stuff, all the Hindu stuff, and like ancient India, ancient Egypt, all that kind of stuff, like all the philosophy side of things. So I've read, Plato and Marcus Aurelius like back to back so many times. But and then COVID was the big reset for everyone. So COVID was a massive reset. And I was like, great, I've got a year to really hone in on my sort of mental resilience. Because if I can do that, then I'm unshakable in whatever I want to achieve. And I was very lucky to do that, because 2 years out of FD really. So graduated 2018, finished my FD year 2019, 2020. Became an associate for a bit. COVID happened, and then literally like 2.5 years into qualifying, it's opportunity for me to partner and take on 2 practices, run 10 surgeries, manage a big team. And I got there and I was like, shit, everything I thought I ever wanted, I've now got. And a part of that was because I think I had the right headspace to do it.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, cool.
What now?
Now what? And I'm bored. I wasn't bored at the time. I'm not bored.
Yeah.
But you get, you're looking at that peak, right? You climb this mountain, you get to the top, and you take in the view for a moment. You're like, this is incredible. This is what I've always worked hard for. You look around, you're like, shit, there's another mountain and it's bigger.
Yeah.
How do I get there? Right? So your goals constantly shift and change.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask this now, because you spoke a lot about priorities, you spoke a lot about goals and kind of getting there, and you realize actually what more is there. Let's take it to straight after dental school, right?
Yeah.
I know me and you spoke and we talked about kind of priorities of new dentists, right? So we're trying to give advice here to kind of the new graduates, people who are in the 5th year. What should their priorities be on? What shouldn't their priorities be on? And should they give in to the TikTok trends of the ideal lifestyle of a rich dentist?
What the heck is a rich dentist? If you know one, let me know, man, because maybe I'm not making enough. I don't know, man. Maybe I should have been dripped out in Louis Vuitton or something. I've just got like my Uniqlo stuff on, but it's comfortable. I don't know what you mean, man. What do you mean by rich dentist?
No, like, so the TikTok image where, I don't know if you're on TikTok, but a lot of people make kind of memes and videos where like the ideal life of, I'm going to drive like a G-Wagon and have Birkins as a dentist.
That just sounds like a major tax liability to me, man. My accountant has been a absolute mentor to me. Shout out to him, actually. It's not real. I know, like I said, I've got friends of mine my mate who has a Lambo, he worked his ass off to put 30k down on it. He then financed the rest, right? But he can afford it because he works as hard as he does. Another friend of mine rented a G-Wagon for 6 months. He just hired it out for 6 months, stunted. I was like, cool. And then, because I thought it was insane. I love my cars, by the way. So I reached out to him. I was like, yo, congrats on the G-Wagon. Like, this was insane. I'm so proud. And I was like, where'd you get it from, bro? And I was like, when did you get it? Because I was curious, right? Because at one point I was like, oh, maybe I could get a G-Wagon. And then he was like, bro, I just rented it for a couple of months to see if it was right for me. And it's nice, but it's a bit too bulky for what I need it for. It's kind of cumbersome and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool, fair enough. But people thought, oh shit, he must be doing so well. He's got a G-Wagon. And I was like, again, this comes back to perceived perception, right? Like, you see what you want to see. The richest dentists I know don't have any of that, right? They don't have the flashy cars. They're not dripping in designer, right? These are people I look up to as mentors now. My advice to young dentists, don't get caught up in the noise, right? Don't buy all the latest stuff. Only 4 things I would say you need: camera, loops, invest in a year-long postgraduate restorative course to learn and consolidate all your basic knowledge. And the 4th thing is to invest in a personal development course to develop you as an individual person, right? If you do those 4 things, you'll achieve whatever you want to achieve within 5 years. I promise you that, right? A camera will help you to reflect on your work so you can get better each and every day. Loops for you to actually see what you're doing and have the precision and detail you need. Postgraduate course to consolidate all the knowledge so you learn how to do proper protocols when it comes to fillings, bonding, onlays, preps, tooth wear, occlusion, all that stuff. And that's all covered in a year-long postgrad course. And then personal development so that you can become unshakable in your knowledge and your foundations for you to then pursue whatever it is you want to pursue.
I see. And you mentioned the postgraduate courses. What is the selection of those like? Are they all good or?
They're all good, allegedly. I mean, every single one of them has 5-star reviews if you look at their websites, right? So there's no difference. So what I tell people is, look, they're all going to cost the same. They're all going to cover the same curriculum. They're all going to roughly teach you the same thing. Some are more hands-on than others. Some are more theory-based, and some have different lecturers. Others have the same lecturer. So if you've got the same lecturer every time, great. So you can go back to the same person. They can see you grow and develop. If you've got different lecturers, that's another benefit. You can see how different techniques work and you can find what works best for you. Some are more theory, so you can understand the nuances of everything, and some are more hands-on. So find what works best for you around your schedule, around your lifestyle, and just go for it. There's hundreds of them. I genuinely can't say one is better than the other because I haven't done them all, right? But from anecdotal evidence, for me, something that's hands-on, something where I can see the same person every time I go, so I can go back with my mistakes and learn from them. That was the most important thing for me. And ideally one that worked on a day that I wasn't working. So that was it.
I see. And also, Sorabh, you mentioned before earlier on in the podcast how there's certain things that you weren't really taught or that lecturers didn't really adopt so much in dental school. In terms of current dental school curriculum, do you think it prepares you for the real world?
Absolutely not. But I don't know what the current curriculum is anymore. I've been out of dental school for 6 years, thankfully. Feels like I got out of prison. I've been out for 6 years. I don't want to go back in. Do you know what I mean? So I'm staying on the straight and narrow. 2 things that dental school doesn't prepare you for. One, the reality of the NHS and communication. Now, some dental schools will argue that's not their prerogative, right? That's not what the curriculum is set out for. Dental school is there to ensure that you are a safe performer, or I think there's a word for it.
Yeah, safe beginner.
Safe beginner. Yeah. That's it. And that's what they should prioritize. And I completely get that. A lot of tutors, when you speak to them, they know that dental school is not preparing you for the real world. They want to change the curriculum. They want to implement communication. They want to implement like masterclasses and all these other little things and bonding protocols and adhesive dentistry and digital dentistry. And you have these incredible tutors that are pioneering these things, but they're fighting against a lot of nonsense bureaucracy within dental school. The amount of heaven and earth one of my tutors had to move just to get a scanner was insane, because he would tell me about it after clinics and stuff, and I was like, keep pushing, man, because we need this stuff. And I don't know why there's this disconnect. There's a lot of politics in it. There's a lot of, like, my advice is go to dental school, graduate from dental school, and then you start learning. Right? Just get through it, get your degree, learn what you need to learn to be a safe beginner so you can pass all your exams, pass all your OSCEs, pass your clinical skills, and then the real work begins, right? People don't realize that. They think dental school is this bubble. Once I finish, once I graduate, great, I'll be earning like 200K a year, driving my Ferrari or whatever it is. Not the case, right? And it should be the case.
100%, man. And just kind of one last thing. What does success mean to you?
Definitely not buying a Ferrari.
Establish that.
For me, it changes, man, because I thought it'd be owning my own business, owning my own practice, and doing the things I want to do, which I now have the ability to do, which is great. Success for me is having 3 to 4 days a week free for me to do whatever I want with the people I love. That's it. For me, it's not a monetary value. It's not, I need to have X number of practices. I need to have X number of income every month or whatever. For me, it's, if my parents need something, can I be there? If my wife needs me to do something, am I there? If my children need me, can I be there without having to think about loss of income, loss of responsibilities? Can I be financially free and provide all the things I need for the people around me so that I can just live my life and enjoy it, right? I think success to me is having the freedom to do all of that. That doesn't necessarily mean I need to make 100K a year. If I can get by on 50, great. If I can get by on 20, even better. And whatever's extra is nice, right? But for me, it's spending time with the people I love, doing the things I love. And that's priceless, because no one's going to take that away from you. You can speak to any dentist or anyone you look up to. No one's going to turn around and say, hey, I wish I spent more time at work. They're just going to say, I wish I did more of the things I loved.
I see. And sorry, you've got an audience here, of young professionals. I'm sure you've addressed them a lot so far, right? What is, 3 sentences, or what are 3 or 4 sentences you say to these people that, you just summarize everything you've said into one impactful message?
Don't be in competition with anyone else except for yourself. Just focus on being better tomorrow than you were today, and you can't go wrong.
Thank you so much, Sorabh. It's been a pleasure, man.